Doug, let me start with you. And this reversal, this turnabout on the Republican Party and law enforcement. Let me read here from the Republican Party platform. Page 1 of the definition of what your party stands for. We dedicate this platform with admiration and gratitude to all who stand strong in the face of danger so that the American people may be protected against it. The men and women of our military, our law enforcement, and the first responders of every community in our land, and to their families. How did Republicans now become the defund, destroy, don't trust the FBI party?
Well, one, it's quaint to remember that the RNC has a platform. Under Donald Trump, the platform was whatever Donald Trump wants, and that's how we got here, is just a complete loyalty to all things Donald Trump, and then whatever else was conservative policy or whatever was fact-based came after that. And, we Republicans had pushed back very successfully and had a very strong message against Democrats on a lot of issues, but Democrats pushing a defund the police message was something that was really palpably strong for Republicans. And now, because of a few Republicans, not all of them, but enough of them who've said defund, destroy, and other things like that, they've allowed Democrats to really get up off the mat on this and have some momentum as we start approaching Labor Day in the political system on a complete own goal, because everything always has to be, for enough Republicans, all about Donald.
Ron, this has to be upside down world for you as somebody who has, studied history so much, and the 60s, 1960s, 1970s, to now hear Republicans be so anti-establishment, anti-police, as Doug has just said. I mean, to hear them saying destroy the FBI, it is a head spinner. But do you think that it does affect the midterms?
Well, it's a head spinner, Allison, in terms of the traditional ideological positioning of the parties. It's less confusing if you view it in the context of how Trump is transforming the Republican Party into something much more like what we have seen in Turkey or Italy under Silvio Berlusconi, a quasi-authoritarian party that is committed above all to the rule of its charismatic leader. I mean, the big lesson of this entire episode, I think, is both that Trump feels even more unconstrained by rule, law, or custom on the arbitrary exercise of presidential power than he did before January 6th. And that what we are seeing from the Republicans in Congress over the past week, I think, is a pretty clear signal that if he becomes president again, they will be even less inclined than they were the first time to impose any constraints on him. And all of that is part of the transformation of the party into a vehicle of his will. And, we're seeing the same thing in these primaries. We're going to see it tomorrow night in Wyoming. The voters and elected officials in the Republican Party who believe that Trump is a kind of a toxic influence in American life have to accept the reality at this point that they are the subordinate minority in the party. And the question is, what do they do with that going forward?
Doug, let me ask you a broader question here. We talk about these narratives of Trump versus the establishment of the GOP. Is Trump the establishment of the GOP? He's the former president. He's a front runner likely for the nomination in 2024. Every race is defined whether you are on his side on the election or not. And maybe after tomorrow, 8 of the 10 congressmen who voted against him in the impeachment vote will not be returning next year, very likely. Is he now the establishment of your party?
Yeah, there's a case really of be careful what you wish for. Donald Trump's everything he said he wasn't going to be. He is the establishment now. He is the swamp. It's all of these things. And Victor and Allison, I'll tell you, I texted last week with one of the members who went up to visit Donald Trump last week after we found out the revelations about the FBI visit. And I said, be very careful here, for your own political purposes, but also, more broadly, be careful, because we know 2 things about Donald Trump. One is when there's a revelation, 2 or 3 days later, we find out, gosh, it's actually worse than we thought it was. And the other is politically, Donald Trump doesn't give points. He only takes them away one at a time. And if you stood with Donald Trump on Tuesday, you better have been with him on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, because any cracks in that, you'll be his next target.
Ron, I thought it was so interesting what the House Judiciary Republicans tweeted out about the, we can call it a raid on former President Trump's home. They said, if they can do it to a former president, imagine what they can do to you. Yeah, if you take classified documents out of the White House, they can do it to regular people. We've seen that before.
Right. Look, I mean, this is Again, if you think about what's happening in the Republican Party, this very much fits the pattern that we've seen in examples of this abroad, where any kind of unearthing of misconduct or illegal behavior by the leader is immediately translated by the party into an attack on its voters. This is an argument that Trump has made all the way through, because I mean, he has argued that he is the human wall against all of the changes, cultural, demographic, social, and American life that the vast majority of his voters fear and dislike. And that anytime any questions are raised about him, what it's really about is silencing them. And that at the moment is the dominant strain. That's the dominant faction in the Republican Party. So we're going to see what happens if Liz Cheney loses tomorrow night as expected. Does she go forward into the 2024 Republican presidential primary, trying to rally the roughly 1/5 to 1/4 of Republican voters who polls consistently show are not on board with the Trump vision and the Trump assault on democracy? And what does that mean? I mean, is there a path forward? Clearly, right now, the Trump critics are losing almost all of these key races in Michigan, Arizona, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, et cetera. The question is, can they be organized into a force that exerts any influence in the party? Because everything right now is pointing in the other direction towards continued transformation to something much more like what we have seen in places like Turkey or Italy, where the party is simply an extension of the will of the strongman.